I just don't like to see farmland. I don't want to see farmland turned into something like over the Tatamy, all those concrete warehouses or what. I mean, I remember what that land used to look like and the crops that were growing in there. And now when I drive through there, it makes me sick. So I know when I bought the farm from my dad, it was in '84. The farm itself was in the family since 1860. The builder of that house in there, the brick house, was my great grandfather. And his last name was Fulmer. And then he had a daughter that married a Beck. And then it was the Beck farm. And then he had a daughter that married a Koehler, and that's how it became the Koehler farm.
I bought the farm in 2018 from Dad. I've been here my whole life, so I was familiar with the whole farming operation prior to buying the farm. So just try to keep going with everything that's changing, and it seems to be more challenging every year. Well, mainly with the inputs to produce crops, to feed the cows, supplies to maintain the dairy. Just the cost keeps rising. It just seems it's like what the family always has done, from my great grandfather to grandfather and dad and then me. So, and the kids hopefully have the opportunity to, if they like to do it, they can do it. But it's
Hey, my name is Joanne Powell. I'm assistant professor of animal and dairy science at Delaware Valley University. So the most popular breed in the U.S. is the Holstein. So each breed, they do have their quirks. They definitely have different ways of behaving. Some are much more susceptible to something like heat stress. Some of them are a little they're tightly wound, right? They're kind of almost not hyperactive, but they react much more quickly than other breeds do. The breed most susceptible to heat stress is going to be the Holstein. They produce the most milk, which means they need to eat the most feed in order to produce all of that milk.
Now, where does it go after this? Where does this go after this?
It goes down into this pond and then into the bulk tank.
Cows are ruminants, right? So they have four-chambered stomachs. One of those is basically a large fermentation vat, and that act of fermentation that's breaking down cellulose and plant fibers, that's going to generate a lot of heat.
Wanted the farm to continue in the family, so that's why he was interested in keeping the farm. So yeah, I'm glad that hopefully the farm will stay in the family.
nobody's driving out here to look at big massive structures like a city.
The two bigger ones, those two stacks there, the two tall stacks and the two cooling towers, that's oil fired. The two smaller stacks to the left, that's the gas fired unit. That's the last one they put in. Well, I guess the data center isn't gonna be on our property, but if, my fear is once they get started somewhere, then they'll just wanna keep going with it, and once you give into it, they got the money, they'll do anything they wanna do. That's,
So first of all, cows are creatures of habit. Right? They have their routines, and they really do not like them disrupted. When you disrupt their routines, we start to see effect on milk production, on reproduction, sometimes even food consumption. Right? Something is not right in their world. So if you are going to move, a large industrial complex in, data center, whatever it happens to be, that is inherently going to cause those animals some stress. How much stress? Well, this is a relatively new thing. We're starting to kind of see farmland and these data centers try to learn to coexist, right? But, if there's noise coming from that facility, that's going to be a stressor to the animal. If by chance there happens to be stray voltage coming from that unit, again, stressor to the animal. Coming and going of people, stressor to the animals. So any one of those things involved in that data center could potentially stress the animals out and have a long-term impact on not only their health and well-being, but that farm, their profitability and sustainability.
Voltage. What exactly is stray voltage, and how do you see stray voltage affecting a farmland?
So stray voltage is just like a low, it's exactly what it sounds like, right? There's a low electrical current passing someplace it's not supposed to be. And it depends on, how the power lines are running, or where they're running is where that stray voltage is going to be exhibited, right? And so that then determines where's the cow experiencing it, right? So I've heard of cows that got a mild shock whenever they went to get a drink of water. Okay, cows can, in the right environmental conditions, drink up to 100 gallons of water a day. So if they don't want to drink, they're going to be in a relatively bad situation quickly.
I don't know, but my son works for a power company, and he works kind of like Central Jersey, South Jersey, and he's around data centers that are there, and he says there's a constant honk all the time.
And I don't know that it would matter if it's constant or intermittent. Anytime they sense it, it's going to create stress in them.
And what does this stress look like?
So that stress could look like a decrease in feed production. We know when cows are being milked, if the people that are working with the cows during milking, if they're loud, if they're moving quickly, that's going to impact the cow's ability to let milk down. It gets involved in their, that whole cycle of lactation. And so when that happens, obviously they're not going to give as much milk, but that also sets them up for potential diseases like mastitis, which would be an inflammation of the udder.
That's one thing I'm concerned about. I don't think they know enough about these things to just come in here and start throwing up centers all around. I don't think there's enough known. There's not enough studies done. I have no idea what it would do to the cows, or I don't know. I don't think they know either.
Over time, obviously, it's going to have an impact on their health. It also can show up reproductively as well, is that cows maybe not exhibiting signs that they're ready to be bred, or they're losing calves at some point during gestation, oftentimes early in gestation, so we don't realize they've lost the calf. And without having a calf, they don't produce milk because they're mammals, right? So.
what do you consider would be a safe distance away from a farm?
I'm not really sure I'm comfortable answering that. I know
Right.
myself, I would want miles. Is that factual? Probably not, right? That's more an anecdotal thing. But I do think that distance needs to be far enough that those impacts, right, whether it's sound or voltage or whatever it happens to be, I can't be aware that that data center is there,
Right.
right?
So across the road from a farmland, in your mind, would be relatively too close.
I do think that. The other thing that I have not really talked about, and it is probably might even be a bigger concern than the noise and things, is the tremendous volumes of water that data centers require, and that's going to use up water that could be used on that farm, whether it's for watering the cows, cleaning equipment, or even water for crops that they're growing to feed the cows. I personally feel that there are better places to put data centers than in areas where there's production agriculture of any kind.
How do you feel with the proposal of the data center?
I feel it's not something that's very good for the township or the area. I think there's better suited areas for them. It's not what the township is all about. I just know the township in the past has been for open space and farmland and agriculture, and that's hopefully what they continue to push for.
Callahan says it's not using the land to full potential. Well, he likes to eat too, so that's my feeling. You know, you got to have it produced somewhere.